Who was Dwayne Haskins, Albert Breer?
I think I think we have a tendency sometimes to, in these moments, kind of have a hard time, wrapping your arms around exactly who a guy was. I knew him in passing. I didn't know him that well, but obviously I've got a lot of connections to people and know a lot of people well who knew him well. And so I talked to a lot of those people over the last 48 hours. And, the one thing that kind of keeps coming up is genuine, big heart. I mean, all the coaches at Ohio State, they all have some story of something that Dwayne did for their kid. I even had, one coach had told me that he's got a jersey framed, a Haskins jersey framed in his office at home. And on the number 7, there's the normal thing like, hey, coach, thanks for everything, Dwayne. And then on the bottom of the 7, it says, and say what's up to, and it's got his kids' names on it, and he was just, look, there's no question when he came in the league, he had a lot of growing up to do. But, he had a big heart. He was well-intentioned. He wanted to do the right thing. I kind of have a soft spot for guys like this that are that age where, they almost sometimes have to mess up on their own to figure it out. And I think Dwayne was one of those kinds of kids that had a huge heart and wanted to do right and wanted to be great and all of those different things. But maybe it came along a little slower with him at times because he had to kind of see it for himself.
Look, look, Albert. I mean, we've all been around the block here on the NFL, you and I and everyone else, and we've heard stories about guys who come out early or come out too early or need some growing up, and the NFL is a very difficult fishbowl in which to mature and grow up, and and Haskins might have been that guy, but his family have been robbed of the times in which he becomes mature, and we've seen that happen over and over and over again, and maybe have immense professional success, and now we have been robbed of that. He and his family have been robbed of that, and it's just awful. I saw Ryan Day say that they're going to honor him at the spring game that's coming up this weekend. I imagine there will be many testimonials then as well as this fall as well for Haskins,
And I got a couple stories that I think can kind of encapsulate where he was going and how he wanted to get there. And, I heard this story yesterday. And it was, after the Illinois game, his redshirt freshman year. So he wasn't starting yet. And, they'd blown out Illinois and it was raining and windy and ugly, that night in Columbus. He got in at the end of the game and, he made a handful of errors, just was not a good night for him. And, he came out of that game and he just felt horrible about it. So not knowing when the next time he's going to play is going to be, he went back that week and he decided to bury himself in his work. And I'm going to make sure I get this right. And I'm going to, I can't let that happen again, and so the next week was the Michigan game, and he didn't know, again, that he was going to get in. J.T. Barrett was the starter. He gets hurt, and Dwayne goes in, and you know how that one played out.
He was spectacular.
Dwayne played great. And, I had a coach tell me yesterday, we thought that was when Dwayne basically set the stage to beat out Joe Burrow in the spring and win the job and have the great 2018 that he had. And I'm telling that story because I think that the people who were closest with him felt like that was where he was in his pro career now. Like that, 2-week period was sort of a microcosm for where he was working in Pittsburgh now, where he knew he'd messed up in Washington. And, he knew he had a lot of stuff to work on, and he was quietly getting that work done and trusting, that he would get the sort of result that he got all those years ago, when he quietly went to do his work after, that ugly night against Illinois. And, it's heartbreaking hearing that because, you think about young people that are lost so young, that they're lost way too early. You think about all they had left to accomplish. And, a lot of the people who, I think really loved Dwayne felt like he was at that point where, he was getting ready to turn the corner. He'd grown up and he got married last year, and they were so hopeful for what was in front of him. I can even tell you, like with the spring game this week, they tried to get Dwayne back there a couple of weeks ago. They had a big recruiting weekend, and they wanted to get him back there. And, I think he was a little, from what I understand, like he was a little sheepish about going back to Ohio State because the great relationships he had there and everything else, when he went back, he wanted to go back proudly. Like he wanted to go back as a success story, and he wanted to wait until he had the sort of success in the field that he thought he was capable of before, they brought him back and kind of had him, be one of these faces of the program, which, he's so richly deserved to be. And they were talking to him about coming to the spring game this weekend. And, it's just, again, like, it's just so sad to think about, like, how hopeful everybody was around him, and what great things he had to accomplish, and not just in football, but, the way he was with other people, and the smiles he put on so many people's faces. It's just, it's tough hearing those stories, Rich, because, as you kind of sort through this, I think, again, like with people who are gone so young, you think of all that was left to accomplish. And, certainly talking to the people around Dwayne, they were all convinced that the best was in front of them.
Any idea what he was doing out on that highway? Will we know? Any idea?
Yeah, I mean, so a couple days ago, I had heard something that, like, he'd run out of gas on the highway. There's so much speculation out there right now. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it's that's the best way I can answer it, because I do think that there is, from what I understand now again, like, I know it's out there, he was down there. Mitch Trubisky, I think, had hosted a bunch of the Steelers offensive players.
Yes.
And it's one of these passing camps to get ready for the off-season program. And so, my understanding was they were up in Boca, and I think, at least what people around him thought was that he was heading to the airport when this happened. Again, like, why he's out walking, I have no idea. You know what I mean? Like, and again, there were like those details that were coming out at the beginning. But I just, I don't know if it was just a massive error in judgment. I'm just not sure, Rich, and I hate to speculate on what it might have been.